Same target, same night, same total exposure time. One image looks like this and the other one looks like this. The only difference? This number. Today we're going to talk about what that number actually means and why most astrophotographers have got it wrong. So here's the thing. ISO and gain are not the same thing, but they're also not completely different. They both do the same job, amplifying the signal your sensor captures, but they come from different worlds. ISO is a term borrowed from film photography. It's a standardized sensitivity rating, whereas gain is the term dedicated astronomy cameras use, and it's measured in a much more precise way. Now, if you're shooting with a DSLR or a mirrorless camera, you deal with ISO. If you're using a dedicated astro camera like a ZWO ASI, a QHY, or an Altair, you see gain. And if you're using a smart scope, but understanding what it's doing under the hood, that will make you a better imager regardless. Let's start with the physics, and I promise to keep this practical. Now, when photons hit your sensor, they generate electrons. That's your signal. Before that signal is converted into a digital number, an ADU, or analog to digital unit, it gets amplified. That amplification is what gain and ISO both control. Now, a higher gain or higher ISO means more amplification. Each photon contributes more to your final pixel value. Simple enough, but here's where it gets interesting. Every time your sensor reads a pixel, it adds a small amount of random noise. We call this read noise. It's absolutely unavoidable. And here's the critical insight. Read noise is fixed in electron units. It doesn't change with your gain setting. But when you amplify your signal with higher gain, the read noise becomes smaller relative to your signal. So in bright enough conditions, like a background sky glowing with light pollution, higher gain actually improves your signal to noise ratio. That sounds a bit weird. That's the part most people get backwards. They think higher ISO means more noise. Full stop. It's more complicated than that by far. Let me show you exactly what it means in practice. Here's a concept that every dedicated astro camera user should know. Unity gain. Do you understand what this means? Well, unity gain is the point where one ADU equals one electron. One photo converted, one unit of signal recorded. A one-to-one direct relationship. For most ZWO cameras, this sits somewhere around gain 100. For QHY cameras, it varies by model. Why does unity gain matter? Because below unity gain, you're leaving signal on the table. Above unity gain, you're compressing your dynamic range. Bright stars start to clip. At unity gain, you get the sweet spot. Enough sensitivity to capture faint signal while still preserving detail in brighter areas. Now here's the practical advice. Start at unity gain. Experiment from there. Go higher if you're targeting very faint, diffuse nebulae. Stay closer to unity gain or even lower if your field has bright stars that tend to blow out. Now for DSLR and mirrorless users, the same principle applies, but the manufacturer bakes in a lot of processing that makes it less transparent. Here's what decades of astrophotography testing has converged on. ISO 800 to 1600 is a sweet spot for most unmodified Canon and Nikon DSLRs. Below 800, read noise starts to dominate. Above 3200 ISO, you're compressing your dynamic range so much that bright stars become bloated blobs. But here's the nuance. Full frame sensors are more forgiving at high ISO than crop sensors. A Canon 6D at ISO 1600 looks different from a Canon 700D at ISO 1600. And modified cameras, where the internal filter has been removed for hydrogen alpha sensitivity, often perform better at ISO 800. If you're not sure where to start, begin at ISO 800 2-minute subs on an unmodified DSLR. That's the baseline. Adjust based on your sky brightness. If your background sky pedestal looks clipped or washed out in a histogram, dial it back. If you've been making assumptions about gain and ISO without really understanding what's happening, don't worry. I think most of us do. And that's why I make these videos. Hit the like button if this is clicking for you, and subscribe if you haven't already. I publish tutorials like this one every week. Now let's bust the biggest myth in this whole conversation. All right, here's the misconception I see most often in forums and comment sections. High ISO creates more noise. I want to be very precise here because it's not completely wrong, but it's not right either. What's actually happening at high ISO, you're amplifying everything. Your signal, the photons from your nebula, go up. But the sky background glow goes up too, and the noise in that background also goes up. So when you zoom into a high ISO image and compare it to a low ISO image, it looks noisier. But here's what you need to ask. What's the signal to noise ratio? In many cases, especially under light polluted skies, a higher ISO image has a better signal to noise ratio for faint signal because you've pushed the sky background above the read noise floor. You're now sky limited instead of read noise limited. And that's exactly where you want to be. In other words, the noise you're seeing isn't new noise created by higher ISO. It's pre-existing noise that's been amplified and is now visible. The difference? You can stack that away. Read noise is harder to eliminate. So what should you actually use? Let me give you a decision tree. Dedicated astro camera. Start using unity gain. Your camera's datasheet lists it. If you don't know what it is, search your model's name plus unity gain and you'll find it. Experiment up from there for faint diffuse targets. For DSLR or mirrorless cameras, start at ISO 800. If your histogram shows the background sky buried in the left corner, your sky is dark or your subs are too short. Try ISO 1600. If stars are clipping regularly, come back down. Smart scopes like C-Star, Vespera, etc., you don't control this directly, and that's by design. The software is making optimized decisions automatically. Understanding what it's doing helps you interpret your results, but you don't need to tune it manually. And here's the bottom line. The right gain or ISO is when your sky background is clearly detected above the noise floor and your brightest stars aren't fully clipping. That's the practical definition. Everything else is fine tuning. So to wrap up now, gain and ISO, same idea, different language. And once you understand the physics behind them, it stops being intimidating. Start at unity gain or ISO 800, watch your histogram and adjust from there. That's the whole game. Now I'm very curious, what camera are you using? And what gain or ISO setting have you settled on? Drop it in the comments below. I read every single one of them. And if you want to go deeper on the noise side of astrophotography, I have a video on exposure time and stacking right here. Take a look at the link below. And I'll see you in the next one.